An airport chaos, a targeted leader. But as the assassin closes in, a moment of impossible recognition freezes time itself. Her eyes meet his, and he whispers a name. A name that shatters the moment, revealing a past so deeply buried, it defies imagination. What happens next will astonish you. Subscribe to our channel and don't miss any more stories. The late afternoon sun, usually a golden promise, now cast long, unsettling shadows across the bustling tarmac of the international airport, as the presidential convoy slowly approached, its armored vehicles glinting ominously under the watchful eyes of countless security personnel. Amidst the meticulously arranged crowds of onlookers, a figure dressed in the unassuming garb of a ground staff member moved with an almost imperceptible grace, her movements deliberate, her gaze unwavering, betraying no hint of the storm brewing within her heart. Every step she took was measured, each breath a silent prayer, as she navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the terminal, her pulse thrumming a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a drumbeat to the impending chaos she was about to unleash upon the world. The air grew heavy with anticipation, a collective holding of breath, as the roar of the arriving presidential jet filled the atmosphere, signaling the imminent arrival of her target, a man she had once known, now a symbol of all she despised. Her hands, hidden within the folds of her uniform, trembled ever so slightly, not from fear, but from the immense weight of the destiny she carried, a destiny she believed was righteous and absolutely unavoidable. As the aircraft doors finally hissed open, revealing the stoic figure of IBRAHIM TRAORÉ descending the ramp, a collective gasp rippled through the gathered throng, but her focus remained absolute, her senses heightened to an almost supernatural degree, ignoring the shouts of the crowd. She slipped away from her assigned position, merging seamlessly with the moving currents of airport staff, her eyes scanning the immediate vicinity, identifying the gaps in the security perimeter, meticulously planning her approach with cold, calculated precision, honed by years of silent preparation. The very air around her seemed to thicken, becoming charged with an invisible energy, as she reached beneath her jacket, her fingers closing around the cold, metallic grip of the weapon she had meticulously concealed, a silent promise of the violence she was about to unleash. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a drumbeat of pure, unadulterated resolve, as she saw her moment, a fleeting window of opportunity amidst the choreographed movements of the presidential guard, a chance to make her indelible mark upon history. With a sudden burst of speed, she darted forward, a blur of motion, aiming directly for the unsuspecting leader, her hand rising with deadly intent, the suppressed firearm a silent, terrifying extension of her desperate will. The sharp, almost imperceptible click of the weapon being primed was drowned out by the sudden, panicked shouts of the security detail, who, despite their rigorous training, were momentarily caught off guard by the audacity and speed of her sudden, unexpected assault. Time seemed to stretch and distort, each second feeling like an eternity, as the world watched in stunned silence, a collective gasp catching in throats, as the barrel of the silenced pistol leveled with chilling precision directly at the unsuspecting leader's head. The sheer audacity of the attack, unfolding in broad daylight amidst a throng of witnesses and a phalanx of guards, momentarily paralyzed everyone, leaving a vacuum of inaction where immediate, decisive intervention should have been. Her eyes, filled with a burning intensity, met his across the short distance, a silent, powerful confrontation before the storm, a gaze that conveyed years of untold suffering and unyielding resolve, a desperate plea for recognition. In that suspended moment, as the fate of a nation hung precariously in the balance, a flicker of something profoundly unexpected ignited in Traoré's eyes, a spark of recognition that transcended the immediate danger, momentarily eclipsing the threat. The world seemed to spin to a halt as Traoré's eyes, usually sharp and calculating, suddenly widened, not with fear, but with a profound, almost disbelieving shock, a recognition that transcended the immediate chaos. His hands, which had instinctively begun to rise in defense, inexplicably dropped, his posture shifting from defensive readiness to a stance of bewildered vulnerability, an instant transformation that stunned his own security detail. The air crackled with an unspoken question, a silent acknowledgement passing between the assailant and her target, a moment of profound recognition that froze the frantic movements of the guards and the horrified gasps of the onlookers. It was a recognition that reached beyond the present moment, delving deep into a forgotten past, resurrecting a connection so potent, so deeply etched into their very beings, that it rendered the present danger almost inconsequential. The woman, poised to unleash death, faltered, her finger hovering inches from the trigger, her own expression mirroring his, a mixture of shock and an agonizing, profound sadness that momentarily eclipsed her burning resolve. A name, barely more than a whisper, escaped Traoré's lips, a sound too soft to be heard by anyone but himself, yet it resonated through the charged atmosphere, carrying the weight of shared memories and unspoken truths, touching the very core of her being. The name, echoing a time of innocence and shared ideals, struck her with the force of a physical blow, dismantling the carefully constructed wall of icy determination she had built around her heart, revealing the raw, vulnerable human beneath. Her hand, which had held the weapon with unwavering resolve moments before, now trembled violently, the suppressed pistol wavering, its deadly aim lost in the sudden, overwhelming surge of deeply buried emotions that erupted within her. The carefully constructed facade of the hardened assassin shattered, revealing the profound humanity beneath, a young woman caught in a maelstrom of conflicting loyalties and a heart torn between duty and the echoes of a love long lost. The silent, powerful connection between them, woven from threads of a forgotten past, momentarily eclipsed the brutal reality of the assassination attempt, suspending the fate of a nation in a breathless, agonizing stillness. The security personnel, initially frozen by the bewildering exchange, exchanged baffled glances, their training screaming at them to intervene, yet an unspoken command, a primal recognition of the profound, personal drama unfolding before them, held them back. They witnessed the impossible, a leader, usually unyielding, now standing exposed, his gaze fixed on his would-be assassin with an expression of desperate longing, an unspoken plea for understanding. The woman, her face now etched with a tormenting confusion, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, struggled with an internal battle far more ferocious than any external conflict, caught between the path of vengeance and the resurgence of a love long buried. The weapon, heavy in her trembling hand, slowly lowered, not out of surrender, but out of a profound, heartbreaking realization that the man before her was not just a target, but a living, breathing testament to a past she had desperately tried to erase. The air, once thick with tension and the promise of violence, now hummed with the unbearable weight of rediscovered history, a silent testament to the complex tapestry of human connection, even in the direst of circumstances. Years before, in a time when hope was a fierce, guiding star rather than a distant, flickering ember, Ibrahim Traoré and this woman, whose name was Lena, had moved through the shadowy alleys of the capital, not as leader and assailant, but as comrades, bound by an unwavering devotion to a shared dream of a liberated nation. They were both fiery idealists, young and utterly fearless, convinced that their collective sacrifice would pave the way for a brighter future, a future where justice and equality would reign supreme, free from the shackles of oppression. Lena, with her sharp intellect and an unwavering moral compass, was his confidant, his strategist, and his dearest friend, their bond forged in the crucible of clandestine meetings and the constant threat of imminent danger. Their nights were spent poring over maps, whispering strategies in the dim glow of a single lamp, each word a testament to their shared vision, their hands often brushing, igniting a spark beyond mere comradeship, a tender warmth that promised a deeper connection. Their hearts beat in unison, driven by the same burning desire for radical change, believing implicitly in each other's unwavering commitment to the cause, a partnership that felt unbreakable and destined to reshape their world. Their clandestine operations, fraught with peril at every turn, brought them closer than any conventional relationship ever could, each near miss, each narrow escape, cementing their bond with an unbreakable strength, a shared vulnerability that deepened their understanding. They shared meager meals under the starlit sky, their conversations stretching into the pre-dawn hours, discussing philosophy, strategy, and the very fabric of the society they dreamt of building, their hopes entwined like climbing vines reaching for the light. Lena admired his fierce resolve, his unwavering commitment to the people, and the strategic brilliance that often confounded their enemies, seeing in him not just a leader, but a soulmate, someone who understood the depths of her passion. He, in turn, found solace in her unwavering conviction, her sharp mind, and the quiet strength that belied her gentle demeanor, relying on her insights and trusting her judgment implicitly, seeing her as his intellectual and emotional anchor. Their silent glances across crowded rooms spoke volumes, a language understood only by them, a promise of a future where their shared ideals would flourish, and their personal connection would finally blossom, unburdened by the exigencies of their dangerous mission. However, as the movement gained momentum, transitioning from the shadows of insurgency to the glaring light of political power, the purity of their initial ideals began to fray, stretched thin by the harsh realities of governance and the inevitable compromises demanded by the new regime. Traoré, burdened by the immense weight of leadership and the countless lives now dependent on his decisions, was forced to make difficult choices, decisions that sometimes seemed to contradict the very principles they had once championed, a cruel irony of power. Lena, still clinging fiercely to the unblemished vision of their revolution, watched with growing dismay as pragmatism replaced idealism, as the fierce fire of their original cause seemed to diminish, replaced by the cold calculations of political necessity. She saw what she perceived as betrayals, small at first, then larger, each one chipping away at the foundation of her trust, transforming the man she admired into a figure she increasingly struggled to recognize. The rift between them began to widen, an invisible chasm opening up, fueled by differing interpretations of their shared struggle, and the agonizing distance between youthful dreams and the harsh realities of governing a broken nation. Lena eventually retreated from the inner circle, unable to reconcile the evolving nature of the new leadership with the pristine revolutionary principles she held so dear, her heart heavy with disillusionment and a profound sense of loss. She observed from afar as the popular support for Traoré began to waver, as the economic struggles persisted, and as accusations of authoritarian tendencies started to surface, feeding her growing belief that their revolution had been hijacked, its noble intentions corrupted. The whispers of discontent, the cries of the impoverished, and the desperate pleas for change that echoed through the streets, resonated deeply with her, reaffirming her conviction that the path they had taken was not the one they had initially envisioned. She witnessed the hardships endured by the very people they had fought to liberate, seeing their suffering as a direct consequence of policies that she believed had strayed irrevocably from the true spirit of their shared struggle, igniting a slow burn of resentment within her. The chasm between them, once a subtle ideological divergence, now felt like an insurmountable canyon, filled with the bitter dust of broken promises and the ghost of a shared dream that had slowly, tragically withered away. Her idealism, once a beacon of hope, now curdled into a bitter resentment, a burning conviction that the man she once adored had become a tyrant, a betrayer of their revolutionary cause, the very embodiment of the oppression they had fought to dismantle. She became convinced that Traoré, blinded by power, had lost sight of the suffering masses, that he had become indifferent to the plight of the common people, turning his back on the very promises that had propelled him to power. This belief festered within her, growing into an obsession, a relentless conviction that the only way to reignite the true flame of their revolution was to remove the man she now viewed as its corrupted symbol. Driven by a desperate, almost fanatical conviction that she was acting for the greater good, that she was fulfilling their original promise, she began to meticulously plan her desperate act, seeing it not as an assassination, but as a necessary surgical strike, a sacrifice for the soul of their nation. Every fiber of her being screamed that this act was not just about vengeance, but about restoring justice, about reclaiming the revolution from the very man who had, in her eyes, stolen its very essence. She vanished into the underground network of dissidents and disillusioned former comrades, quietly gathering resources, honing her skills, and preparing for the moment she believed would cleanse their nation, a moment that would inevitably involve the man who had once been her closest ally. Her network, composed of those who felt similarly betrayed by the revolution's deviation, provided the means and the opportunity, fueling her resolve with their collective frustrations and their shared hunger for a return to pure ideals. The thought of facing him, of seeing the man she once loved, was a constant, tormenting shadow, yet her resolve was hardened by the perceived injustices, her personal pain subsumed by the larger cause she now served. She embraced the role of the silent avenger, a ghost from the past returning to haunt the present, meticulously planning every detail, driven by a conviction so absolute that it transcended all personal feeling, transforming her into a vessel for a desperate and radical message. And so, the woman who had once fought alongside him, dreamed with him, and loved him, now stood poised to become his ultimate nemesis, a tragic mirror reflecting the broken promises of a revolution gone astray. In that agonizing, suspended moment, as the reality of their shared past crashed into the brutal present, the weight of unsaid words, of shattered dreams, and of profound betrayals hung heavy in the airport air, almost suffocating in its intensity. The silence that followed Traoré's whispered name was louder than any gunshot, filled with the echoes of their intertwined history, a history now irrevocably stained by the barrel of a gun. Lena's face, once a mask of cold determination, crumbled under the onslaught of memories, revealing a raw vulnerability, a storm of conflicting emotions warring within her, as she looked at the man who had been both her closest companion and, in her eyes, her greatest disappointment. His gaze, piercing and full of an unreadable sorrow, seemed to strip away the layers of her hardened resolve, reaching into the very core of her being, forcing her to confront the profound tragedy of their divergence. It was a confrontation not just between two individuals, but between two opposing visions of their revolution, a painful testament to how easily shared ideals can splinter and diverge under the relentless pressures of power. TRAORÉ, with a boldness that defied all protocol and the desperate pleas of his frantic security detail, took a hesitant step forward, his eyes never leaving hers, an unspoken invitation to bridge the chasm that had opened between them, an attempt to grasp the threads of their shared past. His movement, slow and deliberate, seemed to calm the rising panic among the guards, as if his unexpected display of vulnerability somehow defused the immediate threat, replacing raw fear with a perplexing sense of anticipation. Lena, mesmerized by his unexpected courage and the profound sorrow in his eyes, found herself unable to move, unable to react, her hand still holding the weapon, yet entirely disarmed by the sheer force of his recognition and the weight of their history. The silent conversation between them spoke volumes, a dialogue composed of glances, of lingering memories, and of the agonizing realization that the man she had come to assassinate was still, in some fundamental way, the man she had once admired and loved. Their shared history, a powerful, invisible force, held them captive in a bubble of profound personal drama, separate from the chaos swirling around them, demanding an immediate, unwritten resolution. "Lena," he finally uttered, his voice raspy, barely audible above the distant hum of airport machinery, a single word carrying the immense weight of years of unspoken grievances, of missed opportunities, and of a love that had once promised an unbreakable bond. The sound of her name from his lips, spoken with such tender familiarity, jolted her profoundly, tearing down the last vestiges of her emotional defenses, exposing the raw, aching wound of their separation. She saw not the controversial leader, the perceived betrayer, but the idealistic young revolutionary she had once shared dreams with, the man whose hand she had held through countless dangers, the man whose vision had ignited her own burning passion. The weapon in her hand felt impossibly heavy, a damning testament to the path she had chosen, a path of destruction that now felt terribly, tragically wrong in the face of his gaze. In that moment, the years of bitterness and carefully cultivated resentment seemed to evaporate, replaced by a torrent of raw, overwhelming sadness for all that had been lost, for all that they had once shared. His expression conveyed not anger or fear, but an overwhelming weariness, a deep-seated regret that mirrored her own, a silent plea for understanding that transcended the immediate life-or-death confrontation. He was asking her, without words, to see beyond the layers of power and politics, to remember the foundation of their shared struggle, the pure, unblemished ideals that had once bound them so irrevocably together. The silence that followed was thick with unspoken questions, with accusations that lingered in the air, with the haunting presence of a future that had splintered into two irreconcilable paths. Lena's vision blurred with tears, her carefully constructed resolve dissolving like mist in the morning sun, as the full, crushing weight of their tragic trajectory descended upon her, revealing the profound loss of what could have been. The reasons for her desperate act, once so clear and righteous, now seemed to twist and contort, losing their sharp edges, replaced by the agonizing realization that she was about to destroy not just a leader, but a piece of her own intertwined past, a living memory of a shared dream. He did not demand answers, did not accuse her, but simply stood there, exposed and vulnerable, his gaze unwavering, inviting her to remember the shared sacrifices, the moments of profound trust, the unyielding belief in a better world that had once defined their very existence. It was an act of profound courage, perhaps even desperation, laying bare his own humanity in the face of absolute peril, trusting that the strength of their past connection would override the immediate desire for vengeance. Lena's internal struggle raged, a tempest of conflicting emotions, as the image of the principled revolutionary battled with the perceived tyrant, the man she had once loved warring with the man she now felt compelled to destroy. The gun, now trembling uncontrollably in her grasp, felt like a burning ember, its cold metal a stark contrast to the sudden rush of warmth and profound sorrow that washed over her, an agonizing internal conflict that paralyzed her. In that agonizing moment, the question was no longer whether she would pull the trigger, but whether the fragile bridge of shared history could withstand the immense weight of accumulated betrayal and divergent paths. The air throbbed with the unspoken truths, with the specter of a past that refused to be forgotten, and the agonizing possibility of a future that could either be shattered by violence or miraculously, impossibly, rebuilt upon the ruins of shattered ideals. The entire airport, once a cacophony of sounds, seemed to hold its breath, witnessing a drama far more profound than a mere political assassination attempt, a raw, intensely personal confrontation unfolding before their very eyes. Everyone present, from the bewildered security guards to the stunned onlookers, intuitively understood that they were witnessing a pivotal moment, a crossroad where the destiny of a nation might be irrevocably altered by a deeply human, profoundly emotional exchange. The world waited, transfixed, for the resolution of this impossible encounter, for the choice that would define not just the fate of two individuals, but perhaps the very soul of a nation teetering on the precipice of an unknown future. The silence, heavy and pregnant with possibility, stretched on, each passing second a testament to the fragile bridge of recognition that had momentarily suspended the brutal march of fate. In a profound act of defiance against all logic and the urgent whispers of his alarmed security, Traoré slowly, deliberately, extended his hand, not in surrender or defense, but in an ancient, deeply human gesture of reconciliation, a silent plea for connection. His outstretched hand, vulnerable and trusting, seemed to bridge the impossible distance between them, a tangible invitation to remember their shared humanity, to step back from the brink of irreversible destruction. It was an act of raw, unadulterated faith, a gamble that the enduring power of their past connection, the depth of their shared history, would triumph over the bitter seeds of resentment and the immediate threat of violence. Lena watched, mesmerized, as his hand reached out, a silent offering that tore through the layers of her hardened resolve, piercing the armor she had meticulously constructed around her shattered heart. The weapon, now utterly forgotten, slipped from her trembling fingers, falling to the ground with a dull, almost imperceptible thud, a sound that resonated like a thunderclap in the sudden, profound silence. The clatter of the pistol echoed through the hushed terminal, a stark punctuation marked to the end of one path and the desperate, uncertain beginning of another, signaling the triumph of human connection over desperate violence. A collective sigh, almost imperceptible, swept through the shocked onlookers, a mixture of relief and disbelief washing over them as the immediate threat seemed to dissipate, replaced by an even more baffling, deeply emotional drama. Lena, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and an overwhelming, profound grief, stared at the fallen weapon, a symbol of all her desperate intentions, now lying inert on the cold, unforgiving tarmac, suddenly feeling utterly lost and exposed. Her carefully constructed mission, her burning sense of purpose, had vanished in the face of his recognition, leaving her adrift in a sea of raw, conflicting emotions, utterly disarmed by the unexpected confrontation with her past. The sound of the weapon hitting the ground was not merely a physical noise, but a symbolic reverberation, marking the precise moment when vengeance yielded to the agonizing truth of their shared history. Traoré, his gaze never leaving hers, gently approached her, his steps slow and measured, moving with an almost otherworldly calm, as if walking through a field of dangerous but now inert landmines. He ignored the frantic gestures of his guards, his focus unwavering, his entire being centered on the woman before him, reaching out to her not as a leader, but as a man haunted by shared memories and a desperate yearning for redemption. Lena, frozen in place, watched him approach, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and despair, unable to reconcile the figure before her with the image of the tyrant she had come to destroy, seeing only the reflection of their intertwined history. He stopped inches from her, his hand still outstretched, a silent, profound invitation, his eyes pleading for understanding, offering a lifeline in a storm of her own making, a promise of a path not yet taken. The intensity of their proximity, the weight of their unspoken history, created an almost tangible force field around them, drawing every eye, silencing every breath, as the fate of two souls hung delicately in the balance. His voice, now softer, almost a murmur, carried the weight of years of unspoken longing, of the burdens of leadership, and the silent, heavy toll of decisions that had led them to this agonizing precipice. "Lena," he repeated, his voice imbued with a profound sorrow. "We were once comrades, our dreams intertwined. What has led you to this path? What has become of the idealism we once shared, the vision that bound us so inextricably together?" His words, gentle yet piercing, cut through the layers of her pain and resentment, forcing her to confront the profound disillusionment that had driven her to such a desperate act, stripping away her carefully constructed justifications. She saw in his eyes not just the powerful leader, but the tormented soul, the man burdened by the immense responsibility of an entire nation, still clinging to a fragile hope for a better future, however distant. The raw vulnerability in his tone, the unspoken questions, and the profound sadness in his gaze broke through her remaining defenses, revealing the shattered pieces of her own heart. Lena, her face streaked with tears, finally looked up, her eyes meeting his, no longer filled with the cold fire of vengeance, but with a profound, agonizing sorrow, mirroring his own deep regret. The years of bitterness, the carefully cultivated hatred, seemed to melt away under the intensity of his gaze, replaced by the overwhelming truth of their shared past, a past now tragically marred by the present. She could only whisper, her voice choked with emotion. "You changed, Ibrahim. You forgot us. You forgot the people, the promises we made, the very essence of what we fought for, leaving us behind in the shadows of your power." Her words, a raw outpouring of her pain and perceived betrayal, hung in the air between them, a testament to the profound chasm that had opened between their once shared ideals, a heartbreaking indictment of their divergent paths. It was a confession not just of disappointment, but of a profound, agonizing heartbreak, revealing the shattered remnants of a love that had once promised an unbreakable bond. In that vulnerable moment, stripped bare of all pretense, a profound understanding passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of the complex tapestry of compromise, power, and human fallibility that had led them to this tragic confrontation. It was a revelation not just of her pain, but of his own silent burdens, of the impossible choices he had been forced to make, the sacrifices that had perhaps corroded his initial idealism, leaving him equally scarred by the journey. The airport, momentarily forgotten, became a stage for a deeply personal reckoning, a quiet negotiation of past betrayals and the lingering hope for a fragile, uncertain future that might still bridge the chasm between them. The simple, raw human connection, forged in the crucible of their shared revolutionary past, now transcended the immense political chasm, offering a glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, redemption was not an entirely impossible dream. This unexpected encounter, born of desperation and culminating in profound human recognition, defied all expectations, transforming a moment of violence into a potential turning point for both their lives and the destiny of an entire nation. The security team, still on high alert but clearly receiving unspoken signals from their leader, moved to create a protective yet respectful perimeter around the two figures, ensuring their safety while granting them a crucial, almost sacred space for their deeply personal reckoning. They understood, with an intuitive grasp beyond mere orders, that this was not merely a security incident, but a profound human drama unfolding, a pivotal moment where protocols had to bend to the will of an extraordinary, unforeseen circumstance. The initial chaos and panic slowly subsided, replaced by an uneasy, almost reverent silence among the onlookers, who watched, transfixed, as the leader and his would-be assassin stood in quiet, solemn conversation, their faces etched with profound emotion. The air, once crackling with tension, now hummed with an almost palpable sense of hope, a fragile promise that perhaps, from the ashes of betrayal, something new and unexpected could emerge, a testament to the enduring power of human connection. This moment, unfolding before the eyes of a bewildered nation, instantly became a legend, a story whispered in hushed tones, a beacon of improbable humanity in a world often consumed by cynical power. TRAORÉ, his voice filled with a newfound resolve, now spoke not as a general or a president, but as an old friend, a lost comrade, inviting Lena to finally articulate the pain, the disillusionment, and the desperate reasons that had driven her to this extreme, irreversible act. He offered her a chance to speak her truth, to reveal the unspoken grievances that festered beneath the surface, promising to listen not with judgment, but with an open heart, seeking genuine understanding rather than immediate retribution. His gesture was revolutionary in itself, a bold departure from the expected response, choosing dialogue over violence, empathy over vengeance, defying the very nature of political power. Lena, her tears now flowing freely, found herself pouring out years of suppressed anguish, of perceived betrayals, and of the unwavering belief that their revolution had been hijacked, its noble intentions tragically corrupted beyond repair. In that public confession, she laid bare the profound disappointment of countless disillusioned citizens, transforming her personal agony into a powerful, collective voice for the forgotten ideals of their initial struggle. What transpired next was witnessed by only a handful of senior officials and a few stunned airport workers, a private, intensely personal dialogue unfolding in the very public arena, a profound conversation that defied all expectations of how such a perilous situation should resolve itself. TRAORÉ listened intently, his expression shifting from sorrow to deep reflection, absorbing Lena's raw accusations, acknowledging her pain without immediately defending his own actions, recognizing the validity of her perspective. He understood, perhaps for the first time with such clarity, the profound depth of the disillusionment that had gripped those who felt abandoned by the new regime, hearing in Lena's voice the echoes of countless unheard grievances. His posture, once rigid with the burdens of leadership, softened, becoming more human, more accessible, as he visibly processed the emotional weight of her words, recognizing the stark reality of the diverging paths they had taken. It was a pivotal moment of profound empathy, A leader truly listening to the heart of a people he had perhaps unintentionally alienated, seeing her as a mirror reflecting the unfulfilled promises of his own revolutionary journey. In an unprecedented move, TRAORÉ did not order her arrest, did not demand immediate incarceration, but instead, with a surprising quiet authority that silenced even his most cautious advisors, offered Lina a different path, a chance to rebuild, to truly reform from within. He offered her a platform, a voice within his administration, not as a prisoner, but as a crucial, dissenting perspective, someone who could remind him and his government of the very ideals they had vowed to uphold, a true embodiment of their shared past. It was a gamble, a risky political maneuver, but it was also a deeply personal one, a testament to his belief in the enduring power of their bond, a desperate attempt to redeem both himself and the revolution he led. Lina, stunned by the unexpected offer, struggled to comprehend the magnitude of his forgiveness, the profound trust he was extending, a challenge to channel her desperate rage into constructive, transformative change. The offer was not just a pardon, it was an invitation to re-engage, to rekindle the flame of their shared dream, to prove that perhaps, it was not too late to return to the path of justice and genuine liberation. The news of this extraordinary event rippled through the nation, sparking both outrage and profound hope, dividing public opinion in a fierce debate about the wisdom of such an unconventional, deeply personal response to an act of blatant treason. Critics condemned it as weakness, a dangerous precedent that would embolden other dissidents, questioning his judgment and the very stability of his leadership, warning of chaos and further instability. Yet, for many, especially the disillusioned youth and those who yearned for a true, untainted revolution, it was seen as a powerful, almost messianic act of forgiveness, a return to the very humanity that had often been lost amidst the brutal realities of power. It was a moment that transcended mere politics, becoming a powerful symbol of reconciliation, a radical experiment in addressing deep-seated grievances not with force, but with a profound, almost spiritual understanding, challenging the conventional wisdom of statecraft. The unprecedented event forced an entire populace to confront not just the actions of their leaders, but the very nature of justice, forgiveness, and the enduring human capacity for change and redemption. The aftermath of that pivotal airport encounter remains fluid, a testament to the unpredictable currents of human interaction and the fragile possibility of radical societal transformation, as the nation watches Lina and TRAORÉ's uncertain journey unfold. Lina's role, still undefined and fraught with peril, represents a dangerous but potentially transformative bridge between the disillusioned masses and the seat of power, a living embodiment of the revolution's fractured soul. TRAORÉ, having risked everything on a single, profoundly human act of recognition, now faces the monumental challenge of proving that his gamble was not folly, but a genuine attempt to heal the deep wounds of his nation, to restore faith in the revolution's true purpose. Their story continues to unfold, a testament to the enduring power of human connection, a compelling narrative that challenges the very nature of power, betrayal, and the fragile, often elusive, path to redemption. It is a stark reminder that even in the darkest of times, the most profound transformations can emerge from the most unexpected, deeply human, and utterly unforgettable encounters. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred your emotions and made you think, please consider hitting the like button, sharing it with your friends, and leaving a comment below with your thoughts. Your engagement helps us bring more compelling stories to life. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more narratives that explore the depths of the human spirit and the extraordinary moments that shape our world.